Well, sometimes you just got to do it and freestyle it, right? So I was arrested in around 1984 in Lawrence, Kansas by the federal postal inspectors and FBI. And I remember they took me straight to the post office of all places on my arrest. And one of the first questions they asked me was, "So what do you know about this Spider-Man?" And all I said was, "I want a lawyer." And from there, I was taken to the Wyandotte County Jail in Kansas City, Kansas. And while I was there, I was only there like in for holding or whatever. I was there about a week or two. And then I was taken down to Wichita, Kansas for trial. But while I was at the Wyandotte County Jail, there was this great, big, hulking, brutal looking guy, real long hair. I think his last name was Rangstorff. And anyway, he had left the cell. We just got our food trays. And this kid in the cell, there was like four guys to a cell. Well, this kid in there was fucking with him and took his cookie off his tray and hid it. And when this big son of a bitch, he was an old time convict too. And when he came back, couldn't find his cookie. Oh, he flipped the fuck out. He told that kid, "If you ever do that again, I'll rip your fucking head off." I was like, "Damn, yeah, don't touch a man's food." Especially a big crazy old convict. So that was kind of crazy. And so I got moved down to the Sedgwick County Jail in Wichita, Kansas. And it was burned into my memory and still to this day. The first thing I saw when I walked into the little reception area where they have a little holding cell there while they get you classified and everything, going to put you in a house. And I remember that the sign on the wall said, "Don't put your cigarette butts on the floor. Our cockroaches already have cancer." And there was roaches running everywhere, like in broad daylight with the lights on. Pretty crazy jail. So anyway, so I got through all the classification stuff, and I've been deloused, and I've got my jail clothes on now, and they're taking me upstairs, and I got my bedroll, got my blankets, I got my pillow and all my gear, my little courtesy pack with some shampoo and stuff in it. And in where we were, there was like a bullpen that was kind of a half moon circle, and then there was cell runs. I think there was four cells to each that each door opened up into, and so they opened up this door, and there's this cat leaning against the wall, and he was like a chiseled black god. This dude was cut from granite, man, just muscled, and about 6'5", about 100 pigtails on his head, and my narrow white young ass was like, "Oh shit, this ain't gonna be good, man." I was scared to death. Although I'd been in quite a few jails already at that time, because I was 24 at this point, and I'd been going to jail since I was 18. But little shit. Douglas County Jail in Lawrence, Kansas. Fuck, I knew half the people in there, so I never really had a problem. And I've been in the L.A. County Jail also when I was 18 years old, and that was way worse than the Sedgwick County Jail. It was a tough fucking place. So I had a little bit of experience. I knew how to act. So as I'm walking in, there's this cat's leaning up against the wall there, and they told me I had to be in the cell at the very end down there. And so I went in there, and there was this old man in there, and it turns out his name was Charles Ellis. And as I settled into my new life there at the Sedgwick County Jail, I got to know O. Ellis pretty good. And the interesting thing about this guy is that he is a lifetime safe cracker, bank robber, and con man. And he'd put his daughter through school from doing cons back in the day. This is like in the 30s, right? 1930 whatever, 40s. But back then, you could get away with a lot of shit you can't get away with now. Like he had that air about him of authority. Like he always reminded me of one of the guys from Dallas, with the silver hair, and he could put on a suit and he'd look like a banker or a lawyer. He had that air of authority about him. And so what he would do, he had him a fake FBI credentials made, and he would go he had a female accomplice, and he would send her in with a $50 bill, and she would buy something small and get the change. And then, like 2 days later, he would go in with a photograph of her and a fake receipt book and his FBI badge, and he would flash him his badge, and then he would show him a picture of this gal and ask him, have you seen this woman? And of course, a $50 bill, that makes people remember people back then. So they said, yes, she was in here just 2 days ago. He said, well, she didn't give you a $50 bill, did you? Did she? And the guy's like, yes, she did. And he would ask them if they still had it, and they would produce it, give it to him, and he'd make like this fake examination of it and everything, and he would declare that it was actually a counterfeit bill, and then he would write him a receipt and tell him he was keeping it for evidence, and that he made money that way. He also cracked safes. He told me about one time they was in Hollywood and they cracked a safe after working their ass off and everything. They break open the safe. It was full of funny money for stage for the thing, so they almost got caught for that. But he traveled around the country in a big convertible. He's a gangster, and eventually, and I don't know the story behind who he killed or how he killed him, but he got caught up on a murder rap, and he ended up going to the Cummins State Penitentiary in Arkansas. And if you're of a certain age, you'll probably remember a movie called Brubaker, starring Robert Redford. Well, Charles Ellis was one of the convicts in that prison that they made the movie about, and he showed me his bullet wound. He'd been shot 5 times on escape, and it was a brutal prison. It was one of the largest plantations in the country at the time. They grew cotton and all kinds of stuff. It was like a working farm where the convicts had to work. And he would tell me stories at night, make the hair stand up on the back of your neck, about how they put them in these like tin buildings with no floor or anything, just on the ground. And they had mattresses on the ground, and they'd give them a bowl of greens to eat at night. And he said sometimes if the water was still not so hot, there would still be bugs climbing on the leaves of the greens that they would give them to eat. And he witnessed like guys who didn't pick enough cotton or whatever, they'd take them, the guards shoot them. They executed all kinds of convicts back then. And in the end, what they were doing was they would murder convicts and bury their bodies and tell the family they'd been paroled. They don't know what happened to them. But eventually, Charles Ellis and a group of convicts got together, and a new warden had come in, and they finally convinced him of what had been going on, and he launched an investigation, and the whole fucking thing blew up. And they figured out that these guards had been killing convicts, murdering them out in the fields for whatever reason, and saying that they had been turned loose. So this new warden cleaned up the prison, and everything was good. That's why they made the movie called Brubaker with Robert Redford. You should look it up. So anyway, he'd been there for he was doing I think he did 30 years, 33 and a half years or something on his murder charge, and he got paroled out. Well, he was a truck driver. Go figure. I got 2 million miles over the road myself now. But anyway, he was a truck driver also. So when he got out of prison, they let him out, on parole, and he got a job driving truck. Well, he thought he was cleared to go across state lines, but he got caught somewhere, and that's how he ended up in the Sedgwick County Jail fighting extradition. When I got there, he had already been there like almost a year fighting extradition back to Arkansas. And one day they just hollered, Ellis, roll to go. He had to roll his stuff up, and he was gone. But while I was in there with him, he told me all these stories, these horror stories about what they did to the convicts down there in Arkansas. And really, it'd make the hair stand up on the back of your head. This guy was a real old school con man gangster. And He was probably the most interesting guy I ever met there. What a badass old dude. And Anthony Ray Martin, he was the black dude who was leaning up against the wall there. I got to know him too. He had been charged with him and a guy named Ivory Hayslip had been charged with the murder of a cop by the name of Paul Garofalo in Wichita, and they were there getting ready to go to trial, and so I was in good company, right? A couple murderers. So I remember when I first got in there, when I was getting ready to go meet my lawyers and stuff, my daughter's mother had come down, and she smuggled me in some joints in her bra, and these guys were fucking retarded. They left me in a room with just a little wire thing between me and her. So yeah, she reached in her bra and pulled out some joints and slid them to me, and I was able to get them back to my cell without getting caught. And so me and Ellis didn't smoke weed, but Anthony Ray did. So we re-rolled everything. We rolled probably 3 joints for every one that she gave me, and we'd roll these joints up in the morning. And then when we'd get our breakfast tray through the bean hole, um, like one morning I get my breakfast tray, the fucking cockroach running across my cornflakes. Fucking, you can't make that kind of shit up, right? And so what we'd do is we would eat our breakfast and we'd get a cup of coffee for breakfast. But what we'd do is we'd drink our milk and then we'd pour our coffee into the milk container and save it for the night. And then later in the evening, we'd smoke some of that weed. And God, you'd think that they would have smelled it. No one ever said shit to us about it, right? So what we would do is we would tear a little strip off the bottom of our T-shirt and we'd poke a hole in the milk carton thing. You know, like you get in school, the little milk carton, you got to pull the little tab and then open it up. We'd poke a hole through the top part, the ridge, and then we'd tie that piece of string on there, and then we'd take some toilet paper and wrap it around our hand real tight, and then fold it all in, make a nice little tight cone with it, and then we'd light that on fire on the edge of the toilet, and then we'd hold that milk carton over the fire, and it would boil the coffee. And so at night we would have our coffee, and in the evenings they would give us a snack or something, a banana, an apple, something like that, which was pretty cool, especially if you're smoking weed and had the munchies. But old Charles Ellis was a badass old boy, and he told me just so many stories. I can't even really remember too many of the stories verbatim or anything like that. He was just a con man. He had all kinds of cool, slick things. He robbed. He did. He was a B&E guy. He was a safe cracker. He used to tell me how to crack safes and stuff. And Anthony Ray one night was talking some kind of smack, and fucking Charles Ellis, we was locked in our cells because at night they would lock you in. There was 4 cells. You didn't get to just roam around in the hall at night. You know, you had to say 2-man cells. So 2, 4, 6, 8 guys in a run, right? So Anthony Ray was talking some kind of smack. No, Ellis told him, "Man, if you don't shut the fuck up," he said, and used the N word. "In the morning, I'm gonna break your fucking jaw." Anthony Ray didn't fuck with this old boy. This dude was like in his fucking late 60s at that time. So yeah, he was a pretty interesting convict. And Anthony Ray was pretty interesting too, actually. He ended up being a very cool cat. But when they rolled up Ellis out of the jail and he left, well, they moved me into the cell with Anthony Ray Martin. And like I had this magazine, and there was a picture in there of a real hot chick in her panties with a like one of them short-waisted black leather jackets on. So I cleaned off one big area about 4 foot tall on the wall across from our bunks, and it took me about 2 or 3 weeks, and I reproduced that. I drew it right on the wall. Fucking Anthony Ray was cool. He'd get up every night before he'd get in his rack. Even if he got in the rack, he'd like then come back down and go over and kiss her before he went to bed. That's one person that's always kind of protected in prisons, the artist. Artists do stuff for like the biggest, baddest, scary motherfuckers you ever met who wanted some flowery stuff for their girlfriend or boyfriend, whoever they've got, right? So artists are kind of protected in there. You make candy, but I would get candy bars for drawing flowers on their paper, and then they'd write a letter to their girlfriend or whatever. So, and then there was this other cat in the cell next to me and Anthony Ray, and he was this guy. He'd been a heroin addict, and he wouldn't shut the fuck up all night long, praying to Jesus, Jesus, come and save me. And every week he'd give away all of his commissary and stuff. He was whack job, but wouldn't shut up. Most irritating guy. And then we had the Fly. This guy had murdered a couple people, and he would climb up on the bars and just stand. And he took a towel and tied it around his neck, like he was a super fly. We called him the Fly, and he'd just over there yell and scream all this nonsense all night long. And then Anthony Ray had a partner in on visiting day in that half moon bullpen is what we call it. You could go up to the window and talk to have your visit, right? You couldn't you couldn't touch them or anything. But so he had it set up so his partner, I think it was a cousin of his, brought some joints in a cool pack, and then while they were out there talking to all the visitors, were talking to the inmates, they just throw their shit on the floor. But we had a partner who was one of the trustees that cleaned up, and he knew to grab that cool pack. So that's how we got weed brought into us. And there was a lot of cockroaches in that fucking jail, man. But Charles Ellis was really interesting. 33 and a half years. Got shot 5 times on an escape attempt. And he witnessed people being murdered for not picking enough cotton, and was part of the gang that blew the whistle on the whole operation. So if you get a chance, look up a movie called Brubaker, because Charles Ellis, my cellmate, had spent 33 and a half years there on a murder charge. And Anthony Ray, he turned out to be a pretty cool cat. Like, he taught me some boxing stuff, because they both told me, you're going to real prison. You're not going to get out of this. I was there on an extortion charge, and there was no way they were going to let me out. So Anthony Ray spent a lot of time shadow boxing and boxing and teaching me stuff. And I really thought about it here a while back, and I actually tried to look it up, because I'm sure he probably got convicted, and I imagine he's in a prison still somewhere. I really wanted to reach out and find this cat and tell him, thanks, bro. I mean, you might have been a killer and all that, but wasn't with me. He did me right, man. He helped give me a lot of training and information I needed, how to act, how to conduct myself, and mainly Charles Ellis schooled me on all that. He told me what to do, when to do it, and how to do it to survive being in prison. Because the first place I went to was Leavenworth Penitentiary. Just there on a hold until I got moved to. Eventually, I was actually sentenced to Fort Worth Correctional Institute. But to get there, you had to go to Leavenworth. And looking back at pictures of myself now, and when I was in my 20s, I was what they call in prison a pretty motherfucker, man. I was a good-looking guy. But thanks to all of my training, I made it through all of my time unscathed. No one ever attacked me. No one ever fucked with me. Now, when I got down to El Reno, I did hear stories from this guy who said that there were some inmates looking at me. And that's, so it was a good heads up. But I just practiced all the right things. Don't stay in your cell in the morning. Get the fuck out. Don't get caught in your cell. Because if you get a bunch of guys come up there, it's all over. And I stayed on the weight pile. I mean, back there, I probably couldn't even press 50 pounds, but I started hitting the weights, walking the track all day. I stayed busy. I had a little situation there at El Reno. This guy asked me if I wanted to make a pack of smokes. And I said, yeah, doing what? And he goes, jiggering. And I was like, oh, okay, cool. That's where you watch out for someone who's doing something illegal, like they were tattooing. And so I stood down there, and when the guard would come, I would start whistling a certain tune that was a warning to them. So I made my pack of Camels, and that's where I learned that where I was going down in Fort Worth, man, that they had women in there. And I found that just to be amazing. But you do meet some interesting, cool people. There's psychos and bad guys, trust me. I've met them all. I met the toughest, baddest, sickest, meanest individual you ever met. But Charles Ellis, he was a pretty cool old gangster. I don't know. I don't remember him ever really telling me the story about who he killed or how he got on the murder charge. But he did his fucking time. And I don't give a shit. I'm not his fucking judge. And he was a pretty cool old cat. I remember one night, each cell had a little stand-up shower, about like a little phone booth or something. And I remember one night I was getting ready to get in the shower, and Ellis says, "Man, you got a butt like baby sister." I said, "Don't go there, Ellis. Don't go there. You might be able to beat my ass, but you're going to fucking wish you hadn't tangled with me, because I ain't giving up the ring for nothing, for nobody. It's an exit only, motherfucker." But anyway, so I just wanted to share a little story about my journey. And the ironic thing is now, I live about 70 miles from that jail. It was like 1984. And here I am, 70 miles from Wichita. And I'm a whole different person. So the reason I told you all of that was because these videos are not primarily, I'm not trying to make it. That's why I'm not going to be on here going, right off the bat, please like and subscribe, because it really helps us out. Like, well, fucking Jesus, let me jump right the fuck in there and give you a sub, man, if it helps you out. I fucking hate that. I hate that. I have an overlay on one of my videos that says subscribe, but that was just arbitrary to me. I just liked the graphic and it went with the music. And if I put anything in writing, that's one thing, but I'm never going to stop my video or ask you. That's like asking, having people at the food place ask you to pay for your food before you eat it. Fuck that. If I like you, I like your content, I'm just going to subscribe on my own. I don't need anybody to ask me or tell me. It's as uncomfortable for me as when you drive by Walmart and there's a guy sitting there going, anything helps. Yeah, right. With the same gas can I've seen you with out there for a fucking year. Fuck you. You ain't getting shit. Get a fucking job, motherfucker. That's my attitude. So, I'm old and gray and running out of time. But you should have seen me, brother, when I was young and in my prime. That's a line from a Dave Alvin song, and I don't know why he never really blew up. I'd never heard of him in my whole life. One day I just came across this cat, and he's got some badass, original, kind of gritty, down home type music, and that's a line from his song. I'm old and gray and running out of time, but you should have seen me, brother, when I was young and in my prime.